welcome to another episode of Required Reading. On this show, we read comic books, and this just so happens that we're reading Locke and Key.
It's a special one.
One of my favorite comics ever.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
That's why we
Written
have Joe.
by Joe Hill and artistically made pretty by Gabriel Rodriguez.
I have to say, I was so excited to finally get a chance to read this comic because these two goons talk about it in the writer's room all the time and have for a while.
Yeah.
So when Locke and Key was our next pick for Required Reading, I was like, all right. And I have to say, I'm super glad that I read it.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's darker than your normal comic. Like, I don't think I've read anything as dark as this in a comic book world. Joe Hill is actually Stephen King's son. He uses a pseudonym because he's like, I don't need that king in my name.
He's got a similar beard, though.
Yeah, but he's got that freaking messed up bug that's in his father's brain.
Exactly.
It's in his brain, too, and it's eating away, and it's just creating juices that flow out of his hands and just make these amazing stories.
I loved how genuinely creepy it was, too. Like, not just like, here's a bunch of gore, here's a bunch of, like, typical horror-in-your-face stuff. It was legit creepy.
First 5 frames is setting up a tone that you will experience for the whole journey while you're reading these books.
Yeah, so let's delve into what it's about for those of you that didn't read it, because we're going to try this new thing where we won't really spoil anything right off the bat. We'll get into like a spoiler zone. So right off the bat, the story's about the Locke family, hence Locke and Key, and we're talking about this place called Key House, which is in the Locke family. They kind of just own the house. And we're not in Key House in the beginning, but then the whole family moves due to an uncertain
event.
An event that is very traumatizing.
Goes to Key House, and that's where basically the bulk of the story is going to take place from here on out.
And Key House is awesome because it's this kind of magical place where all the keys do different things in the doors.
Every key has its own magical sensibility to it, and every time it goes into a door, it activates that magic. That's all you need to know.
So now we're going to go into a little bit of spoiler territory, but fear not, if you didn't get a chance to read it, you can click this annotation and it'll skip to the part of the video where we're talking about things that won't ruin the story for you. But if you did get a chance to read it with us, since this is required reading, then here we go.
The first couple frames open up with this story about Sam Lesser and coming to murder the father. But that's not what the books are about. The books are about this family. So this family moves back to Key House. And what I love about the writing so much, and this is what I love in a lot of books, that if they can take a child's point of view, there's 3 kids, 2 of them are in high school, and then there's a younger one. And if you can write from an adolescent point of view and understand that angst, it makes it so much more interesting, and that's what they're able to do in this book right off the bat. So you're instantly connected to these characters who are going through these traumatic, tragic events, and so you're already taking this journey with them, and then it immediately gets more effed up when they get to the Key House.
I think my favorite parts in this volume were when you're inside the kids' heads.
But the sad thing about that is you've got that Sam character who, like, you just think you hate him instantly because he's murdering this family.
Well, he's basically so psychopathic.
Then you like see his home life, and you see that he's like abused, and he can't. And then like he's just kind of a twisted boy. And the dad kind of had the right idea when he came into the guidance counselor's office, and he was like, "Look, I would write you a letter of recommendation, but I think there's something kind of mentally wrong with you, and I think you should see a therapist."
Right.
But by that point, Sam is already drawn into the power of Key House and the power of the villain of the series, which is the girl that lives in the well in Key House.
Legitimate jump out scare when Bodhi is leaving the well house. He's been talking to this well girl. And the Echo tells him that she cannot climb out of the well. And he goes back to tell her after a couple books of hanging out and just having conversations with this well monster, this well Echo. He goes, "I'm done. I don't really want to talk to you anymore. You creep me out." And as he's leaving, the artist just does this great jump out when the Echo female is at the top of the well and grabbing, and you jump back.
Yeah, because it's the eyes, and you see the shadow.
It was done so expertly.
It's not just like a comic book, you know. And there's that stigma about comic books where you're like superheroes and grandiose adventures, and just kind of like
feels more like a graphic novel.
It really does just feel like the definition of a graphic novel. Yeah, the story is compelling. The characters, like we just said, are expertly written, and you do relate to them on a very personal level. Joe and I have actually read further into the series. We're almost towards the end, and the series is almost over. It ends this year.
This is like the first time in my life that I've been going to the comic book shop every month to get the next episode.
Yeah, and it's really cool to kind of come back to where we all are, like, and to where some of you viewers are, and Trisha, to the beginning of the series, and catch these little things, because everything is so well connected. Like, I'm sure he had everything planned out, obviously, but there's these little Easter eggs in the issue. You know, there's cool. That I won't spoil, but you really do get the relationship of all these characters and the town, and and the teachers and some of the
and there's history. That
there's history.
You start like time jumping. It's great. My favorite thing about this, aside from the writing, is the art, because the art has this like childish nature to it, and when you juxtapose that with how violent it gets and how bloody, it's so unexpected every time, because you're sitting there and you're looking at this thing that almost like you would expect to see in a children's book.
It's like,
yeah, I mean, you're instantly into it. It's a horror movie in a comic.
For me, my favorite thing right now is definitely the character development. Just coming into a brand new series, sometimes it takes a while to start to like a character or feel like you're in that character's shoes, but just, especially the way like Bodhi's written, when he first goes through the door and starts experiencing things and how he describes his experience.
He describes it like a 6-year-old child.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Final thoughts then. I obviously love it. It's one of my favorites that I've ever read. I'm 2 issues away from it, just the journey being over, which makes me sad. Steve's 1 volume behind because he waits for the bulk. So I guess the question would be, is Trisha, are you going to move on with this series?
I absolutely will. I don't know how fast I'm going to tear through it, because especially with something that's that kind of dark and heavy, I will probably opt to space it out a little bit as opposed to digest it all at once. But I need to know what happens to this family.
It gets really cool. Like a good key and a lock. There's a lot of twists
Oh!
and turns.
Let's go to the Twitter and see what you guys thought about the book. This one's from Frank Lanza, and he says, Locke and Key is definitely in my top 10 comics of all time. Just phenomenal all around. Add Rachel Rising to the pull list.
Matt Butler says, #SFN Comics. Really like the direction Locke and Key is going in. Great theme/ideas. Only problem was that the art style didn't match the tone of the book.
That's the best part! You're wrong!
I feel like the two complemented each other perfectly.
Josh Ryan says, at that girl Trish, he's talking directly.
He's talking
to you,
Oh,
Trisha.
baby.
Lock and Key is a must-read, not just for people who enjoy comics, but for anyone who enjoys creative storytelling. #SFN Comics. And that is the biggest point that you got to point out when it comes to movies, comics, telling stories on tabletop, or whatever. It doesn't matter what medium you're in, it all boils down to the story.
Yeah. That is it for this episode of Required Reading.
Next week, please join us. We'll be reading Superman for all seasons. It's self-contained, so jump right on in there. And then make sure to tweet us at #SFN Comics, and we'll be able to talk about stuff with you next week. It'll be great.
We'll use a lot of
The
gesticulation.
seasons turn, turn, turn. For all the seasons turn, turn.
That's nice.
Turn.
Oh, your moist hot butt just touched my hand.
For all the seasons, and Superman for all the seasons.
Do you want to kick it to DJ's pull list?
Let's look at DJ's pull list.
Okay.
Hey guys, I'm DJ Wooldridge, and this is my pull list for September 25th. Marvel's got event books out, and guess what? I don't care. The comics I recommend this week from the House of Ideas are Guardians of the Galaxy #6. According to Marvel, this is the issue where comics legend Neil Gaiman joins Brian Bendis on the book and brings his original character, Angela, along with him. Also, I heard something or other about this team getting their own movie soon. And you should also give Uncanny Avengers #12 a peek. Rick Remender has been scripting this hybrid X-Men Avengers team since they launched Marvel Now. And if you're familiar with Remender's work at Marvel, we looked at Uncanny X-Force last week on Required Reading. Then you'll know his stories are as big as any event, just without the needless tie-ins and with actual payoff. Meanwhile, over at Image, they're finally releasing the 3rd issue of Jupiter's Legacy. It's written by Mark Millar, but without all the sensationalist bullcrap he's been checking into his other recent books, and drawn by Frank Quietly, which, let me tell you, is worth the price of admission all on its own. Also this week, Vertigo is releasing The Wake #4. This is a weird, twisted look at the myths and horrors that surround the ocean. The plot's been super compelling and ominous so far. It's been tightly written by Scott Snyder, with gorgeous pencils by Sean Murphy. Of course, DC's still slogging through the villains month, but there look to be a few winners in the pack this week. First up is Batman Superman #3.1, Doomsday. Now, Doomsday is a hit or miss villain, mostly miss, but the writer, Greg Pak, has been killing it on Batman Superman regular, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. While Jeff Johns is co-scripting a Black Adam-centric issue for Justice League of America. His work with Shazam was easily the highlight of the last year of Justice League, so I'm stoked for Johns to return to his arch rival, which brings me to my picks of the week. That's right, picks. Plural. There are 2 books that are consistently at the top of my pull list every month, and both of them have new installments coming out this week. Brian Azzarello's take on Wonder Woman is easily the best thing that's happened to the character in years, and probably the best thing to come out of the New 52. So you know I'm picking up the Villains issue written by Azzarello, focusing on the villain he introduced to the series, the Firstborn, with Wonder Woman 23.2. And of course, any week that sees the release of a new saga, you can bet it'll be at my #1 spot. If you saw Required Reading 2 weeks back, you know how great this series is, and saga #15 finally hit stands, and I can't wait to pick it up. So that's our pull list for this week. What do you think, and what are you grabbing? Let us know on Twitter with the #SFN Comics, and you could be in this ticker right here. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and you can click this annotation below for the rest of our stories on SourceFedNerd. My name is DJ Wooldridge, and this has been our pull list.